Shifting our attention over to the livestock sector now, we were joined this week by UNL livestock economist Elliott to get his take on a multitude of topics ranging from highly pathogenic avian influenza to the latest happenings in the cattle markets. We began by getting his thoughts on the spread of HPAI. We're now joined by Elliott, UNL livestock market analyst. Elliott, it's always good to have you here on Market Journal. Thanks for coming back to the desk.
Yes, thanks for having me.
Well, let's start today's conversation with highly pathogenic avian influenza, kind of where we've began our last few discussions, Elliott. Where do we sit right now in terms of the number of birds and perhaps the number of states as well that have infections?
Yeah, so right now we're about 30 million total, and of that, layers or chickens that produce table eggs are the largest portion of that. Second, but really significantly lower, is our turkeys. They're about 4 million head, and most of that is really confined in the South Dakota, Minnesota area. Ironically, this is the area where we saw it really prevalent last time. We had avian influenza in 2015. A lot of discussion about why that area tends to be a hotspot. But really the biggest issue that everyone was talking up, I know I was talking about it a lot leading up to the Easter season, was the egg prices, and USDA releases their weekly egg report, and we did see higher egg prices pre-high path avian influenza, but particularly with the increase kind of later Easter season. But since then, prices have kind of come back, down from those highs, and this is not different than what we've seen in 2015, but just given where we were at in the season, we experienced those feed prices being the largest driver.
You referenced feed prices, not feed prices. You referenced 2015 a couple of times here in your opening statement about HPAI. History often repeats itself, and if we go with that mindset, what has struck you as similar to 2015 and still at the same time maybe a little bit different?
Yeah, in the beginning even myself was kind of wondering if we had learned from 2015 to really kind of either biosecurity or we were able to contain it a lot quicker. It seems not to be the case, actually. If we look at kind of the epidemic curves, those have pretty much followed the same path, except only things we've shifted a couple weeks later, but that's just because we started. And so that's something that I found to be really interesting. Similar market reactions relative to the egg prices in particular. If we take lessons from that, we're looking at maybe lower production in egg laying for the next 9 months, and relatively lower broiler export markets. We still benefit from regionality and being able to trade with our export partners, but we're still likely to see an effect there as well.
Based on what you've seen and the numbers you've tracked, do you think egg prices still go up a little bit higher than what we're currently seeing?
I think we're probably on the down end of the egg prices and more stabilizing, but at higher prices pre-HPAth. I think we're still going to be higher going into the summer and into the fall, but I think we're going to see higher than normal, but not as high as we're seeing around the Easter season.
Let's shift up the conversation a little bit here, Elliott, and talk about the cattle market. We like to do that when you come on to Market Journal. We had a cattle on feed report recently. What numbers in particular stuck out to you from that?
Yeah, so we always talk about pre-market expectations, and we talk about in what the market actually traded at. This gives us an idea of how much the CME adjusts. Probably the biggest expectation on that was that we thought we were so full in the feedlots, and we thought, is there a possible way that we're going to place more cattle? And somehow cattle producers, particularly here in Nebraska, found ways to source cattle and put them here. We were actually up about 6 to 7% of market expectations. Really what that ended up doing is we ended up having quite a bit of sell-off in the CME live cattle futures. That's probably the biggest shock to the market. And really when we look at that steered heifer mix, every quarter we get the quarterly report, and we still see quite a bit of heifers on feed, which really gives us an indication that we are not holding back heifers for herd rebuilding right now.
So based on the numbers you saw in the cattle on feed report and the other factors in the cattle market right now, what's it telling you about the trends we're seeing?
Yeah, I think there's some pre-pricing of droughts. I think people are still kind of sorting through what they believe droughts will be. Some of that's probably helped out by extremely high cold cow prices. We haven't seen these level of cold cow prices in 5 to 8 years. I think some producers are taking advantage of that further liquidating the herds. I think people are also trying to manage a little bit about pre-drought expectations, given high feed costs. And I think something that's has really shocked me is that we're able to find space for cattle. I think that's a positive thing going into the summer. But if we start to really have a severe drought and cow-calf producers need to place earlier, I don't think there's just going to be space for them.
Give you the final word here and wrap up. Final thoughts from you on this cattle market industry or risk management advice you'd like to offer?
Yeah, I think anytime we come on here, we always talk about risk management. We always talk about market expectations. I have my own thoughts about where the markets, if you look at ag media in general, they have their markets, but generally those are based upon current information. No one really knows what's going to happen in a year, 2 years, or even it'd be really great if you didn't even know what 6 months would be a right price. And so just risk management always tends to be there for an opportunity for producers to manage that risk. And so working with an advisor or trying to do that yourself is always warranted, especially when we have disease instances like they're experiencing in the poultry. We can't expect those, so it's best to be prepared.
Elliott, I appreciate you coming back on the Market Journal.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Bryce.